Well, after receiving it in my inbox about 50 times, I guess it's time to deal with this new assertion that there's cannibalism in the DPRK and that parents are going around and eating their children. Now, undercover reporters for Asia Press International says that there's a shocking number of cannibal incidences going on in the DPRK right now. There were fears some famine-stricken North Koreans are being forced into cannibalism following the claims that a man was executed for murdering his 2 children for food. The incident was reported by Asia Press and published in the Sunday Times. The same investigation also contains details of a man who dug up his grandchild's corpse for food and another who boiled his child and ate the flesh. Source? Any proof of this? I mean, we've heard these baseless accusations before that there's cannibalism going on. Now, please keep in mind that this is coming from Asia Press International, an organization funded by the U.S. government. Also, the same people who frequently filed an unlawful DMCA against myself for a video that I made giving a voiceover critique of one of their movies, which was defeated because I was in the right. Now, they're saying that this could be responsible for the deaths of up to 10,000 people. Of course, the source is highly dubious. One, it has nothing to back up what it's saying whatsoever, and two, it's coming from an organization that is known to be funded by the U.S. government. So you know you can trust what it says, right? Now, the Sunday Times says that it quoted the DPRK official on the matter, but I can't see the Sunday Times article because you have to pay money in order to be able to see it. So I'm not giving them any money. But I'm actually going to go ahead and say that it probably doesn't give his name because all the articles that also quoted this same Sunday Times article didn't give the name of the North Korean official that was supposedly asked about it. But again, I can't actually verify this because I can't actually get to the source of at least this claim that a North Korean official spoke on it. However, I'm going to switch over to how the Daily Mail actually covered this. They're saying undercover reporters said food was confiscated in 2 provinces and given to the residents of the capital in Pyongyang. But, I mean, if the farming is already owned by the government, then how is it confiscation? They grow the food, they hand it over to the government, and the government takes it out to the markets. How is that confiscation? Like, I don't get how there's supposed to be confiscation if that's how the system already works. That would be like if it doesn't actually even make any sense. So people from the government came and took the food that they were already taking anyway. Like, this doesn't even make any sense. Like, are these claims of rationing, and then the rationing is supposed to make this situation worse? But I mean, it's not making any sense. They're just using these like buzzwords, confiscation, to try to make it seem like there's this big thing and invoke a particular image in your mind. Now, there is a food shortage. That is absolutely true. There was, the drought that went through the country last year. There was the typhoon that hit that destroyed a lot of cropland. So there is an actual real reason for a shortage of food. It's these accusations of cannibalism that are just completely baseless. I mean, this is not the first time the DPRK has been just accused of cannibalism with absolutely nothing to back it. Unless, of course, you count the previous documentary I spoke of, which I did the voiceover for, where they had childlike crayon drawings from supposed defectors. If that counts as evidence for something, okay. Now, what they do, they make these reports of men murdering children and then eating them. By my count, it's actually only three baseless claims. And then what they do is they juxtapose this with actual real problems that are going on, like actual real reports of shortages of food that the government does not deny. And then somehow, by that logic, these real stories put next to fake ones makes the fake ones true. And that's entirely what it's supposed to do. I mean, this is actually an old technique used for propaganda. What they do is they move on to something real. North Korea was hit by a terrible famine in the 1990s known as the Arduous March, which killed between 240,000 and 3.5 million people. Now, this famine did actually occur. And then by proxy, this is supposed to validate all of the baseless claims that were made. And by the way, nice, accurate numbers. They're actually not even close to each other. So I assume the Western world is going to go ahead and assume it's 3.5 million. I mean, they can't differentiate whether it's a quarter of a million or 3.5 million. I mean, you'd think that estimates would actually be a lot closer to that. But yeah, there were also the reports in the media about it were contradictory. Some of them said, oh, well, if you eat human meat, you get executed. But other ones were saying that supposed defectors said that there was widespread cannibalism in the labor camps. Well, okay, so basically this was widespread and they were doing it, but they weren't executed. Well, we get a report that if you do it, you're executed. So, like, what are we supposed to believe? That somehow that if you're in a labor camp, you're less likely to be killed than if you're not in a labor camp? I mean, there's just these completely, like, ridiculously contradictory, claims that are coming out. They're coming from all these different sources and all these different, not sources, only one source, which is the Asia Press International. It's coming from, these people giving these different organizations making claims, and they're even contradicting each other in it to begin with. So it's really strange. Now, the Huffington Post did get in on this as well. According to the Telegraph, requests by United Nations World Food Program to access farmers' markets where human meats were said to be traded were turned down by Pyongyang, citing security reasons. Now, with this claim, they provide a link, but it doesn't go to the World Food Program. It actually goes to another Huffington Post article, which is strange because that's not really a source. If you're claiming the World Food Program said something, then you would link to a statement by the World Food Program that they said it. But again, I mean, this is another one of the same kind of deal. What you do is you take something that's a real and you juxtapose it next to stuff that's fake in order to make the fake stuff look real. It's an old, as I said, propaganda tactic. Now, then it puts, this claim that there were markets that they weren't allowed to go to because of supposed cannibalism. Now, I can't verify this because I couldn't find anything where the World Food Program actually says this. Now, they juxtapose this next to a real event. In June last year, the United Nations said 2/3 of the country's 24 million people were facing chronic food shortages. It adds that nearly a third of children under the age of 5 showed signs of stunting, particularly in rural areas. So we can see here, take the fake claim, put it next to a real one, or at least take a bunch of fake ones, put it next to a real one so that somehow that validates the fake ones. Now, in truth, there is a food shortage, as I said. There is a drought, there was a drought, there was a typhoon that hit, there is unseasonable warmth because global warming doesn't exist. And there's also aid being withheld from the DPRK for launching a satellite into space, which is fraudulently accused of being a missile, and then when that turns out to be true, fraudulently accused of being a cover for a missile test. So we have a bunch of naturally occurring phenomenon and not naturally occurring phenomenon of food being blockaded, not being allowed to get it, like aid being withheld. But that somehow it's the DPRK's fault. Like it doesn't even make any sense. Like, most of these things are beyond their control. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. These are baseless assertions that are not being proven in any way, and then backed up with actual real problems that do exist. Now, the World Food Program, which has stuff on the DPRK, says there's a food shortage. There is a link to what they actually say about the DPRK in the description, linking to the World Food Program's own website and in their own words, which is something none of these people was actually able to do. There was starvation in the mid-90s because there was a massive weather-caused famine. Now, this food shortage also happened in China, and it also happened in South Korea. South Korea got a buttload of aid from the United States to bail them out. China, on the other hand, was already rich enough to take care of itself, and it bought unbelievable tons of loads of rice from Vietnam. But the DPRK was given like next to nothing. They were given 500,000 from Russia, but that was like not really of any use considering they couldn't get a hold of the actual food. I mean, it was like nothing. So no one really helped them, while China was rich enough to help itself, and the United States just threw unbelievable amounts of money at South Korea. So it's like a ridiculous comparison. Nobody really helped them. So, but of course, it's communism's fault. That communism didn't have what was the size of a superpower country, or it wasn't being backed by a superpower like South Korea. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous. Now, drought and the claim that drought and confiscation is contributing to a desperate shortage is just, well, of course there's a desperate shortage because of the drought, and the confiscation is actually just the distribution system that's already there. It's not making it worse, because there's always this like connection that if you don't have enough to give everybody a full amount and you ration it to give enough to everybody in order to survive, then somehow that's worse than a whole ton of people not having it at all. I mean, it just makes no sense. I mean, that's why rationing exists. It's just the completely pathetic, superficial, intellectually dishonest mentality of anti-communists to just do this. Now, the whole thing boils down to this: baseless assertions backed up with a few real actual incidences which don't prove their false claims, but by proxy are supposed to. Now, what I think is most amazing about all of this is the fact that this claim of cannibalism comes out from an organization that's known to be funded by the US government and has put out fake stories before, right when the US is accelerating its aggressive policy towards the DPRK. I mean, isn't that just like a wild coincidence? As soon as the DPRK says, no, we have a right to develop certain technologies, and our launching a satellite in space was not a violation of UN rules, and then the US starts out condemning them and taking a hostile stance towards them, and then the DPRK comes out and says, okay, you know what, to hell with you, we are going to build all the technology that you don't want us to have, rightfully or unrightfully. So the US responds with, just miraculously, this claim just comes out of absolutely nowhere. Interesting, huh? I would say the timing is absolutely no coincidence. Again, we have baseless assertions coming out at a time that's very convenient for the US government and imperialist policy against the DPRK. I will believe that there's this cannibalism when it actually gets proven, because what we can do is actually point to a couple cases of cannibalism last year in the United States. So if these completely unprovable accusations of cannibalism constitute that it's widespread, then what does provable cases of it in the United States mean?